Perhaps the first thing a defense attorney would want you to know is that everyone has a constitutional right to a defense. Not just the guilty get charged with crimes, that could be you. So our adversary system of justice, a strong defense challenging the government's best case, is built into the Constitution.
What the framers of the Bill of Rights recognized was that before you deny someone any of their liberty, you want to make sure that certain steps have taken place. And that's why we have in the Bill of Rights and in the Constitution itself protections against measures that take away people's liberty.
Perhaps the most important function that jurors serve is upholding our Constitution and our basic liberties, because the juror in a criminal case has to decide whether or not the prosecution has proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not so simple, that's not so easy to do, but it's what our liberties are based on. If jurors can't do that in a fair-minded way, then all of us are at risk.
On this point, even prosecutors agree.
We've always believed that it's better for a guilty person to go free than for our Constitution to not be followed. It's a stunning and deep principle in the American system, which is not shared around the world.
And the same is true in a civil context. It may be even as important in civil cases to have the adversarial system where you're really sorting out two sides of the story and you have the best lawyers and the best thinking to figure out whether or not a defendant should be held liable in a particular case.
So here are a few things a defense attorney wants a juror to keep in mind throughout the trial in order to be fair.
The overview is given in the opening statement. The defense attorney doesn't even have to give an opening.
The defendant is presumed innocent and is not required to do anything actually in a criminal trial. So they don't have to argue to the jury, they don't have to call witnesses, they don't even have to cross-examine the government witnesses, and the defendant certainly doesn't have to testify. But if he or she chooses, they can cross-examine the government's witnesses.
So in a criminal case, sometimes the defense attorney may do not much more than remind the jurors that it's the prosecution's burden of proof and to really keep an open mind. You've got to stick with the evidence presented to you. You have to do your best, use your common sense, and make the kind of judgments that you would want made if you or a loved one were sitting as the defendant.
And finally, the defense would like jurors to keep this in mind.
Everybody is entitled to the presumption of innocence. It is a fundamental liberty that we all enjoy, a fundamental protection. You've got to stick by that principle, because if you don't, as a juror, then the whole system falls down and it doesn't make sense.